So it's interesting, like we placed a big emphasis on the brand in building trust. And we all know that it's important, but you rarely go into like a board meeting and have a board member say, "Hey, Rob, how's that brand building going?" It actually starts out like, "How is this quarter's quota? How is next quarter looking?" And usually from a CEO's perspective too, right? A chief marketing officer is lots of times having an uphill battle on convincing the organization overall the role of the brand and the resources that need to be dedicated to it. You had a perspective in our last conversation that brand building and pipeline building are not separated. They're not separate activities where they can be looked upon and traditionally kind of have. How do you think about it? You're leading the organization, right? The buck stops with you.
Yeah, so a couple of different things that are unique. Well, they're not unique to our experience, but things we've gone through that kind of lend itself to the branding discussion. We went through a rebranding exercise, and part of the reason we did that was we have a combination of about five companies, and this goes back to 2016, but more recently from 2019 on, when we were PE backed. One of our strategies was let's go get capabilities we don't have. So we went from what can we build internally to what should we buy. And in the buying discussion and the acquisition discussion, it was how do we expand our capability? How do we get more talent? Which was interesting because if you look at the five companies, we've got people in the C-suite from all the different companies. So if we were in the need of something and we knew the company had a capability, and guess what? They have a really good CTO. And as we're growing, we needed to fill those spots. So we recruited some key spots. But then we discussed, you've got these companies. We don't want people to feel like that the original company was holding all the cards, and we've really worked hard to get that shared management team. So we felt like a rebrand was the right thing to do. Our PE firm had gone through this with other companies. So we had a nice process where we analyzed what are the brand values. So we spent a lot of time on it. So unlike kind of the straight financial thing, we did spend time on the brand. And at the same time, we spent time on what are we going to do around marketing and who's our next CMO and those type of things. So with that was a very important breath. So now we do measure, because the name we had before was pretty well established and people knew us. And it was a little bit of a risk to say, all right, we're going to move on from that because we've got other companies that were equal our size and we need everybody to feel like we're all on board with this new thing going forward. So we did some measurement on that. And actually over time, quickly people became to know Anteriad and not the old brand. So we spent a lot of time on that. Obviously the board meetings are usually financial and sales driven and what's the market doing and competition. And that's all great. But the way you get there is you have to establish that brand in the marketplace. People have to know you when you're reaching out. It's a bit of an advantage if they know who you are.
I love one of the things you focus big time on there is really integrating all the different companies and all the different players. And we've interviewed over 250 C-suite executives on the podcast. And we always ask this one question at the very beginning, which is, what are your two greatest challenges for creating long-term sustainable growth? The number one challenge by far was the lack of internal alignment. And that only gets accentuated when you're bringing together separate companies that are now put together. Yet that wasn't the case with everyone who's answering that question. Internal alignment. We all know that it's the high performance teams internally that are aligned that are going to create success and growth in the business. So I love the way that you answer that, because that brand, when I'm taking away, was one of the biggest ways that you were integrating and you were aligning teams in a single go-to-market strategy. Is that like a good takeaway?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple things in alignment around the mission statement, and we have several things we talk about all the time in a broad sense: lead and learn, innovate, inspire, do more, do good. So there's the basic things that we say, hey, everybody's got to be around these things. And then the alignment around the strategy, we have leadership meetings, and we try to keep it, or I try to keep it very simple because things could get very complicated, but here's our growth strategy. Here's what our major pillars that we're going after. And there could be 6 or 7 things at most. And then how are we going to accomplish those things? And this year we met and we said, everything's got to be about those strategies and what we're doing. And everybody's got to, kind of circle. Now within that, when you go beneath that, there are things that we've done. So, for example, the global expansion has been a big thing for us. It's worked well, but we wouldn't be able to do it without going out and saying, yeah, here's the things we want to do. Here's the solutions we feel are important. But every market is going to have its own culture. And we make a big effort when we go into a new market, when we go into APAC and parts of APAC, Australia, or that we have leadership in market. We have the core things we're going after, but within that, we are respecting that there's cultural differences and we have to behave in that market the way that we're going to have success with the right people and leadership. So in every different market, we have leadership. In EMEA, we have a person that's the president of EMEA from there. And, we've adapted to what's going on there. So we make a big effort not only to kind of rally around our core, but also to say we're different in different places. We've got to approach things differently in order to have success.